Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of East Got Game, the unofficial podcast about the NBL1 East competition for 2025. We can't start the episode without a little bit of chin music, can we, Lachy? That's enough of that. I'm still trying to get the timing right between having the intro part, having the music. I'll get it down eventually. I don't think chin music was definitely not the right way to describe that either. That's a cricket term. Am I correct?
It certainly is a cricket term.
And nonetheless, how are you going? What's happening down there in the East this evening?
Big signing announcement today. Kylie Tupaya to Inner West. That's what's happening in the NBL1 East this evening.
Yeah, that's a massive signing. That's a really big signing. Inner West coming up big. Probably, arguably one of the biggest free agents, I think, that we were waiting to hear be signed or at least be confirmed somewhere. So yes, rumors were true. She's gone to Inner West Bulls. So now they've just got to put at least another 11 players together to complete the roster.
Yes, but their first one was pretty good.
Yeah, that's right. They're 100% from the 3-point line so far, some would say.
Certainly are.
And what else is happening in the East? That was some pretty big news to start the episode off. What else is happening down there?
Well, there's been a few signings around the way. A few teams. I think the teams are starting to realize it's getting close, and they've got to build some momentum, dropping some signings. Bankstown women are flying. We were calling them out, and now they've got 5 on the roster. Illawarra men added someone else today. They added CJ Moran, who's played for, I think, Inner West, Sutherland, and maybe a couple of other clubs before going up to Mackay last year. So you would have been privy to his exploits. I think he won Mackay Defensive Player of the Year for that title-winning team last year up in the north. So a defensive presence for the Hawks this season.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun. It's shaping up really nicely for the Hawks. And like you said, I think we did mention in a previous episode, I think it was the first episode of this season, that Bankstown haven't announced any female players. And I think we were hypothesizing that perhaps they were doing all the men and then all the women, which I kind of like actually in hindsight, because then it means that each team gets their individual time in the limelight. Even though it's supposed to be, one club and one competition and things like that. But I don't mind it, especially if you're going to start off with a signing like Davida Dale.
And follow it up with Jada Rice.
And then Jada Rice, yeah.
Oh, that is going to be fun.
Yeah, that is outstanding. I think another thing, just at the top of this episode, we'll mention now and we'll likely mention again at the end. It is the NBL1 East preseason competition this upcoming weekend in Maitland.
That's in Penrith. It's in Penrith.
Of course. I am mistaken. It's in Penrith. That's right. It is in Penrith, which will be fun. It looks like a lot of teams are participating. I think the schedule has recently been released. And are you planning on attending, Lachy?
I'll be there for the first session of the Saturday, so I'll see some women's games. But I made a promise to a friend that I'd go and watch her play soccer on the Saturday afternoon. So, and that was before the Blitz schedule was announced. So, I have to can't break a promise to a friend.
No, I think that's fair enough. There will be plenty more NBL1 East that we can watch during the season. And I think just before this episode rounds out, we'll talk a little bit more about the Blitz and go through some of the scheduling as well. But this episode is episode 3 of our 3rd season of East Got Game. As mentioned in previous episodes, we're going to be going through the rosters as they are at the time of recording of a lot of the teams. So last episode, we went through 8 of the 16 teams in the men's competition for 2025. This episode, we'll be doing the first 8 of 16 teams for the women's competition. So you can expect a few similar clubs to last episode. I think maybe that reflects on the clubs and organisations as themselves of how timely they've been able to announce some of their players ahead of tip-off. So, yeah, buckle up. We've got some great rosters in the women's competition to go through, a lot of new players, a lot of outstanding and consistent players that we're used to in NBL1 East. So are you ready to get cracking, Lachy?
I am always ready to talk about NBL1 East, Squin. You know that.
That is correct. That is correct. Because you're always staying ready. If you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. Am I right?
That's right.
All right, here we go. So again, we're just going to go in alphabetical order. And this time we're going to start again with Albury Wodonga Bandits. Lachy has very kindly prepared the slides again for this episode. And the first slide up on screen is just some facts from their previous 2024 season. Take us through it, Lachy.
I mean, we know what happened in the finals last year, but oh my goodness, those three names in the scoring, rebounding, and assist numbers, and how big those numbers are. 34 points, 16 rebounds, 10 assists per game, and 20-0. Like, just an elite team to watch. I know that they didn't win it all in the end, but man, they were fun to watch. And I mean, Sammy Mack said it on TV a few weeks ago, and Sway's partially why he signed Riley Lupfer is they're pretty decent at shooting threes, but they don't shoot a lot of threes, which is probably why I've got that as their first room to improve stat. And I think it is going to be the stat that improves is how much they shoot the threes. And I also mentioned there, which I didn't do for a lot of teams because it's kind of a touchy topic, their non-paint 2 scoring. They get 10.4% of their points from non-paint 2s, which is taking a fair few shots that aren't your traditional, you know, what's the mantra nowadays in basketball? Threes and layups. And yeah, shout out to Duncan Berg, Hoops DB, because that stat is directly from him. So, but I think it's the names on the left that aren't there, that aren't going to be on the next slide, that are the sticking point.
Yeah, and I think let's go through this roster. I think that's the perfect segue, and then we can also talk back to what you mentioned before about some of the things that Coach Sammy Mack felt like were missing statistically, particularly on the offensive end for the Bandits last season. But yeah, this is the roster as it stands. Again, shout out to the Bandits organization for their timely and very informative social media posts about their upcoming signings for NBL1 East. Super helpful. As we can see, so we've already highlighted some of these new signings in our first episode, I believe the Hype episode. At the top there, Katie Jones, who's come over from NBL1 West via Europe as well, having some time in Luxembourg. You mentioned already Riley Luffner. Also, Claudia Hocking is a local up-and-coming talent as well. And then great to see Emma Mahadi back. And I think, I think Emma Mahadi was probably a big question mark for me, whether she was going to come back or not. So I'm glad she's certainly back. But let's talk about one particular import that you are the most excited about, Lachy.
Oh, Bryn Maskowicz.
Yes.
Probably one of the signings I'm most excited about. Had a slightly interrupted college career at UCLA and DePaul. So 6'3", Canadian, was a really highly regarded recruit. So she'll be their front court import this year, and Riley will be their backcourt import, which I love. I love when you get imports that do two very, that play different roles. You don't want them, stealing minutes from each other or, do it, they need complementary skill sets, not overlapping skill sets, which I think these two have. Riley's been over in Germany, which is where Katie Jones has been playing recently. Shoots the three a bit. Definitely stronger around the basket. Just looking, is that 7 rebounds or so a game? Sorry, yes, there it is. 6.9 rebounds a game over in Germany. So that's solid numbers as well. So definitely a solid addition to the front court, and they're going to need it. They needed another front court import, with obviously Unique taking her 16 rebounds per game to somewhere else, it appears, because they filled both import spots.
Yeah, that's correct. So just off the back of some of your insights already with these signings, I basically wrote Katie Jones to create and Riley to shoot. I think, again, what's really handy about these announcements online is that some of the clubs like the Bandits and even the Penrith Panthers, who we're going to get into a bit later, have started to put little clips together to help complement their announcements. So we already it helps us get more excited and more insight into what these players are going to bring. But basically my notes read, Katie to create, Riley to shoot, Hannah Lacey, Ramika, I'm really excited about because she's super versatile. She's got great footwork. She can shoot the 3-ball. She can put it on the floor. She's only 20 years old as well. And has some 3x3 and World Cup experience representing New Zealand at the Under-17 World Cup. Obviously, you've got Bryn, who is a 6'3" forward, who can bring a whole lot of trouble inside the paint if need be. Then you've got people like Mahadi, Lewis, and Mellington, who are just absolute anchors in this Bandits team that are great role players. So this roster is looking really exciting.
Did you just say Lewis?
I did say Lewis. I did. Molly Rice. I did. Molly Lewis forever and ever. I'm sorry, Molly Rice. You've been married a long time. And it's still Lewis in my head. I think my brain actually overcorrected itself. But yes, Rice, Mellington, Mahadi.
And Mel Kirby. Mel Kirby's back in town as well after playing for Laura, former New South Wales under-20s player. I believe that was my second under-20s. She was part of that team. So
yeah. So
very nice to see her back in Bandits colours.
Yeah, I agree. She's also a really reliable role player as well to add to this already very diverse roster. A little bit younger, but I think, like you said, their skill sets are going to complement each other nicely. I certainly don't think this is a roster to be underestimated because they've also got a lot of up-and-coming local talent injected in there, so they're going for sustainability as well. And, Sammy Mack, you may joke with me sometimes, nothing about basketball, but you've put together a hell of a roster, mate, so you ain't fooling anyone.
No, he's not in the slightest.
All right, very good for Albury Wodonga. So some big outs, obviously Hannon, Murphy, Jackson, Pivic, ? Thompson, ? As you mentioned before.
I think they're definitely out. So it'd be nice if they could sign somewhere else in the East. I wouldn't mind that, but I won't get my hopes up.
No, it looks like if you head to Michaela Pivic's Instagram, it looks like she's also just recently taken on a role working with a lot of college athletes too, which she's loving. So I'm not sure if she's coming back anytime soon. All right, should we roll on to the next squad?
Should.
All right, we're keeping it relatively down south. We're heading over to Canberra. This does say the Gunners, so I'm going to hide that. It is the Canberra Nationals. Record last season, 9-11, a little bit of a, shall we say, challenging, stalling, perhaps kind of a season in 2024, given some of the experience and depth of the roster that they had. Lizzie Tonks obviously leading the way, and Callie Bourne was very good in supporting her with getting it done as best as possible for the Nationals last season. What are some of the things that stick out to you the most when it comes to their statistical strengths and rooms to improve?
The fact both their rebounding rates are in their statistical strengths. So that's great to see. And especially when you consider, having Callie Bourne for all 20 games was obviously great, but they had some players there who can rebound. So they only had Amelia Motts for 9 games last year. and she averaged 7.4 rebounds in those games. So they still managed to get it done as a team. The offensive rating, pretty good, but the defensive rating, worse than the offensive rating, not just in rank, but actually the number. So, giving up half a point per 100 possessions more than they are scored. And I guess that bears out in finishing 9-11 and only playing finals because COE had to pull out. But, I mean, defensive rating not helped by, I guess, committing 17.7 fouls per game. That's, if you're probably sending teams to the line a bit too often there, although at least it didn't bear out in how many free throws they actually gave up. But definitely room to improve, mostly on the defensive end. I think 4 of those 5 stats are based on your defensive play.
All right, I think that's a great segue. I'm really glad that you brought up rebounding as well, because that is going to reflect in some of my notes, particularly of some of the people they've added to this roster. So for me, notably is Kylie McAllister, huge signing for not just for Canberra Nationals, but for the NBL1 East competition as well. And who else is sticking out to you now that they've announced more players?
Obviously, the duo of McAllister and Callie Bourne, like that rebounding rate was good. It could be like supersonic. And you add Abby Kettles in there. She spent last year, I think, mostly playing Waratah for Nationals Academy. I mean, they are going to be hauling down rebounds for fun. So whoever's playing Canberra in round 1, I hope you're practicing boxing out.
Yeah,
but go on.
Oh, no, that's why I brought up rebounding as well. Exactly what you said, McAllister and Bourne, and the addition of Kettles. So according to Basketball ACT's social media outlets and the announcement of Abby Kettles returning to the national squad for NBL1 East, it looks like she was injured a lot last season. So it's good that she's healthy and back playing semi-pro. But I also did write in my notes, is she likely to start in the 4 or 5 with McAllister? And then you can bump up Callie Bourne to the 3 spot maybe and go a little bit bigger. What do you think?
I hadn't thought of it that way, but I like that because I know like Callie's got such a well-rounded skill set that you might want her one position smaller to make use of her abilities, but I guess it does depend also. There's a couple of names in that TBA list that are still could be added and change things again. And they've got Abby Solway back as well. So that's probably one guard spot pretty much filled as well. But player I'm actually really excited to watch is Jasmine Boutsos. She's just become more and more and more of a massive part of this Canberra team over the years. It's one of those players you watch for like 2 or 3, probably two seasons ago, and you're like, oh yeah, she's showing a little bit. And then I think actually against Sutherland last year, or maybe it was a game I commentated, she just lit us up. I don't remember the final result, but we were like, all right, Jasmine Boutsos is lighting us up tonight. It's happening. And now she was 3rd in minutes for them last year. And shot 30% from 3-point range and has just evolved into a real, integral part of this Canberra team. And still young. So really looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I'm excited that Jade McCowan is also back playing. I remember when she played in the inaugural NBL1 East season for Albury Wodonga, so I'm glad she's back. She also has a lot of potential. I think she has a lot potential to contribute a lot to this team as well, likely off the bench. But now you mention how much Jasmine Boutsos has improved and evolved, and also testament to investing in your local talent as well. Initially, I thought maybe she'd be handy, coming off the bench as 6-man, but now I'm kind of thinking if you put her in the starting spot with, say, Abby Solway, and then you kind of strengthen your bench a little bit more, because then you've got someone maybe like McCowan, maybe Tuliak. Tuliak is great to be back on court, but she's also had some injury troubles the last 12 to 18 months. Strengthen your bench, bring someone like Tuliak off, or start Tuliak and bring Kettles off the bench or something like that. There's so much you could play around with depending on your opponent of the day.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's a great problem to have. And I mean, they're 3 ins and 1 out. So, yeah, they've still got a few left to announce if they're going to be announced. But even with this roster, they've got plenty of options. And I mean, that just gives you a chance against more opponents. The more versatile your roster, the better you can set up against different opponents, which can only ever be a good thing.
Absolutely. And we've got some people joining live on Instagram at the moment. So thanks for joining us online as we still work our way through our live streaming. We've got some Abby Solway fans as well in the chat. We've also got some respect to your detailed graphics as well, Lachy. So hats off to you, or headphones off to you, if that's the commentator's version of that expression. Or mics down, maybe. We'll work on it. We'll workshop it. And our friends at NBL1 Socials just said, it's back. So it sounds like they missed us.
Well, I did drop a sneaky mention that I had to jump off the commentator seminar before this to record a podcast episode. So
very good.
Maybe they got the word.
Yeah, leave them eating crumbs, Lachlan, and make them follow the trail. I like that. I like that a lot. Okay, we're staying in the nation's capital, and this time we're going to have a look at the Centre of Excellence women's roster. And before we do that, we're going to look at some stats from last season. Record 10-10, finishing 8th overall, but unfortunately, as you mentioned, had to withdraw because, let's be real, they also had one huge schedule last season around NBA Global Academy camps and World Cup responsibilities. And I think that last year's COE roster for the women's program in particular had such a great variety and depth of talent that they were being asked to represent or at least join squads for multiple age brackets that they were able to fit in as well. So if you look at that roster, we've had Bonnie Dees, Monique Babongi listed there as some of their top performers. We've just seen them now have such great seasons as rookies in the WNBL. So it's kind of nice to think that, oh, hey, they were in the East last season and now they're like bona fide WNBL players.
That's right. Having the COE in is great. Our list of East alums in the pros is just going to be electric a few years from now.
Yes. So we appreciate the COE always being in the East, particularly for this reason. Plant the seeds and watch them grow. But points in the paint, 53%. I am actually surprised to see them first in the league for that statistic. Are you?
A little bit, just because, like, you don't expect young players to, tangle as much in the paint with, older players. But I guess, like, if you watch someone like Monique Babongi get downhill, Sienna Harvey going to the rack, it starts to all come together when you start thinking about it.
Yeah, they have really nice touch under the basket. Getting there is one thing, but their ability to finish was really impressive last season. But rooms to improve. The things that stand out for me is the 3-point percentage and the free throw percentage. I mean, guys, shooting every day.
That was one thing. That's 3-point rate, not percentage.
Right. Apologies.
That was still, I thought that was fairly low, but their turnovers and free throw percentage, because that was something that the COE men, those were both in their statistical strengths. They didn't turn the ball over and they shot good free throws. And that was what I thought. I thought COE women, well, watching their games, I didn't think they'd be top 2 or 3 or anything like that. But I did not think that a COE program would be 15th when you're playing together, training together, probably almost certainly more often than any other team in the league. And free throw percentage, guys, you've got a training hall that's open like all the time. Yeah. It's not like
Get some shots up.
It's not like you turn up for a shoot around and there's under 14 Div 2 training on and you can't do anything.
Yeah, get the gun out. And you don't need anyone to rebound anymore. Sometimes I won't shoot around because no one will rebound for me. You've got equipment for that now. You got get on the gun, get some free throws up. Right. But let's look at the roster because pretty much the names we've already mentioned, unfortunately, aren't going to be there. This roster, but bar 5 are brand new. And when I was preparing for today's episode, the thought that I had in my head was, does it feel a bit odd to consider Jade Crook a veteran? Because that's how I feel she is in this roster.
Legit, though. Admittedly, we did have a year of her at Albury in the East. So we sort of remember her from that as well. And I think if maybe like a Satya Fagan or someone like that was from New South Wales, it might be the same deal. But yeah, it definitely feels like, Jade's been there a while.
She's just had such a wealth of experience as well since she was part of that Bandit squad. I mean, she was in the squad, but she wasn't old enough and eligible to play, unfortunately, that season. But we still remember Lauren Jackson giving Jade a shout out in her speech when they were accepting the championship, and how important Jade was actually to that squad and challenging LJ every day. But yeah, since then, she's represented Australia a handful of times already. So I'm really excited to see her almost have a bit more of a breakout season in NBL1 East this year. Who else are you excited for in the new roster?
Definitely Olivia Aleknovich from Logan, Queensland. I actually was Logan basketball, when she was selected for under 15 Oceania Championship last year, actually put out like a paragraph scouting report about her, which was very, very nice to read. So coming from someone who I'm sure knows more about her than I do, they call her a strong, versatile point guard with an impressive ability to finish at the rim from any angle, even in traffic. Can hit three-pointers and excels on the defensive end, including securing steals. So, and she dropped 44 at a U16 Nationals game last year, I'm pretty sure. In the U16 National Championship Finals last year, she dropped 44 points.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. Yeah. I'm pretty sure in our under 16s Nationals Grand Final against Vic Metro, the score was 44-45 or something. And that wasn't because we were poor shooters. We had very talented rosters. I'm not going to get into it now, but 44 as an individual in a grand final is insane. I wonder if she's going to make a bigger impact as, say, Lara Somfire did when she first came to the East. Lara came in kind of halfway through, just kind of owned the league in her own way for that very short period of time. And now she's like due to ball out at Stanford next season. Yeah, she's given me Somfire vibes. She has that potential.
Oh, I very much hope so.
You think it's a stretch?
I mean, it's tough to say about any player to have a Somfire level impact, but if you don't aim that high, you're not going to get that high. Yeah,
that's true. That's a nice way to put it. But yes, a lot of outs. And as we can see from that outs list, we mentioned Babongi and D's going on and having great WNBL debuts. Opal Bird, congratulations to Opal Bird, now a WNBL champion with the Bendigo Spirit. But look at these ins. What's really interesting about a lot of these ins?
What's that, Squin?
They're all most of them are from Queensland.
Interesting.
So typically, Victoria is usually the most prominent state represented in, say, COE scholarships, all Australia camps, things like that, because, fair is fair. Victoria have been the strongest performing state for a long time. But yeah, if you head to the Basketball Australia website where they announce some of the new scholarship holders for the women's program, Aspen Crace is from SA Metro. Olivia, as you mentioned, is from Logan, which is Queensland. Jade Sherrington, Queensland South. Jemima Maniok, Queensland South. Isabel Smith is Queensland North. So a lot of Queenslanders representing. And then we've got little Andy Smith as well, little at 6'3".
Let's say little Andy Smith, a 6'4" forward, as they call her. Yes, yes, and probably flies. When your surname's Smith, you can sort of fly under the radar of who's in your family. It's
Yes, another A Smith, following in the footsteps of another A Smith. Yeah, I'm really keen to see Sophie Taylor hit the court again, because she was pretty much out all season with injury. So I bet she's itching to get back on the court as well for an NBL1 season. Very good. So yeah, lots to look forward to for the Centre of Excellence. Now we're going to head back into New South Wales Metro Territory here with the Manly Warringah Sea Eagles. Big facts here. Record at the end of the 2024 season was 16-4, finishing third overall, losing the preliminary final to Newcastle. Now we can look back on it. Do you feel like the loss doesn't sting as much when you end up losing to the champions, or does it sting just as bad, Lockie?
Not when it's Manly and Newcastle. They played too many close games. They played like the Zoe Miller takeover up at Newcastle Basketball Stadium. Then this prelim final, Manly and Newcastle. I mean, the two places already hate each other from the 1997 Rugby League Grand Final. So, shout out to Darren Albert. But yeah, no, that loss is, especially after losing the grand final the previous season, make a grand final. You've made two prelims and a grand final. It only stings more every single time.
Every single time. I think it just adds to it instead of, you don't get used to it. You just get more and more mad because it just keeps adding to it.
Yeah.
Offensive rebound rate, third in the league. Net rating, third in the league. I don't think there's too many. I think maybe fast break points is probably the statistic in room to prove that I'm most surprised by, because I know how well they can play in transition. What about you? What are you most surprised by or most interested by in these facts that you've prepared?
Well, I struggled to find things Manly do badly, as you could expect. But the reason I put something they came 8th in their room to improve is because their offensive rebound rate was 35.1%. And then they were only 8th for second chance points per game. And when you've already got a good offensive rating, then your second chance points, like as a percentage of your total, is probably even lower ranked, or at least around the same. And so it's great to have extra opportunities, but it'd be nice to complete more of them. If you only get that second chance, use it. But the assist rate is just phenomenal. I think if you just ask someone, just take a blind guess who has the best assist rate in NBL1 East women, I think the majority would probably guess Manly Warringah, watching how they play.
Yeah, it's poetry in motion sometimes, watching their half-court offense, just so well executed. You can just see how much buy-in each player has into what they're doing and how committed and disciplined they are just by the way that they play. It's not a matter of saying it in presses or online or anything. You just watch how they play and you can tell that they're playing for each other, which is something I really like about Manly. Looking at the schedule, however, speaking about the rivalry with Newcastle, they only play each other once. That is going to be a really interesting game to watch this season, given that they only play each other once. I'm pretty confident that the last 2 seasons they played each other twice in the regular season. Am I right?
I think so. And it's at Manly, and I saw they just got a brand new set of grandstands put up at Northern Beaches Indoor Sports Centre. So hopefully the Sea Eagles fans pack those out for what should be an absolute belter of a game.
Yeah, I can already hear it from here. It's going to be really, really great. So let's get to this Manly roster. Again, quite a lovely, complete roster. Probably a couple of new names as well added to their list. The likes of Brooke Flowers not returning. Brie Delaney, unfortunately not returning, but she's gone and living her best life. So
dead set.
Yeah. So we're still pleased for you, Brie Delaney. While we miss watching you play, we're pleased that you're living your best life. But at the top, Alex Delaney, Josie Borman, Kimberly Dickinson, Zoe Miller, all your favorite hits are there. And at the bottom here of this roster, Kirsty Lucido, Gabby Van Dyke, Taylor Wirtz. I've tried to get some intel from this roster, but I couldn't get a lot other than that. I know that Gabby Van Dyke's played 3x3 through UTS. It looks like Kirsty Lucido hasn't played for Manly for a very, very long time.
It's been a while because
the last record I could see was 2015.
Well, she went to college at Newbury for 20. She was a senior at college in 2016. So yeah, it was a name I knew, but I haven't seen her play in forever. So, but yet again, more homegrown locals coming through.
Yeah, which is very nice. Now, the import that they have signed this season is Taylor Wirtz, and I'm not sure if you've managed to see the announcement on Instagram, but it is a true love and basketball kind of a moment, which I really, really like. So Taylor has signed for the women's team, and it says that the final pairing, final announcements for the Manly teams this season. We're finishing with a married dynamic duo. So her husband, Preston Purifoy, is playing for the men's team. How cool is that? 2 for 1.
That is so cool. That is awesome.
I don't know if we've had that since NBL1 East was in existence.
Or
you could argue, actually, no, the Moss, Liam and
but they were both already at Hills.
They were both already at Hills. That's true. Yeah. That's true. I don't think we've had a couple come from an import couple sign.
No, where they were both imports. Yeah. No.
So I've checked out some footage of Taylor online. She's a 6-foot combo guard. She's played in Euro Cup. She's definitely a drive first, shoot second kind of a guard. Like, she's very quick. She has great handles, but she wants to get 2 feet in the paint. So my question mark is, with this current roster, they already got such talented guards. Does that mean Dickinson's going to have to play in the 5 again, even though she's probably better, more suited for a 4?
Well, I mean, yes. I mean, that's all I can say. Yeah, I mean, looking at the roster. Yes, I would say so. There's no one else on that roster you'd prefer to have at the 5 spot than Honey Badger.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I just really like what she can do from the high post when she's in a bit more of a 4 spot. So, and look, we know that Antonia Henderson and Josie Borman can guard 1 to 5. So that's certainly in their favor. But I just hope that that's not going to be, Brooke Flowers was such a great presence for them last season because she had such great length, and she was so unassuming if you would drive towards her, but she would be ready to swat. So yeah, hopefully that's not going to be to Manly's detriment, but very excited to see what Taylor can bring to the already existing very talented squad.
Very much so. And I mean, it's worth remembering that for the majority of the season, they didn't have both Brooke and Kim. Tim Dickinson
right,
only
actually
played 6 games last year because she was injured. So, yes, you'd probably prefer Kim to be at the 4 spot. But we've seen what she can do at the 5 spot. And last year they played the majority of the season with... I mean, they could basically have the same starting lineup, but Dickinson for Flowers. Although Dickinson didn't even start every game. She only started 4 games last year. So it was... The vast majority was Delaney, 2 Delaneys, Zoe Miller, Josie Ballman, and Annie Henderson.
So they're going to be just fine.
Just fine.
Just fine. Guaranteed. I am confident they'll make top 8. Hopefully.
Top 8. I would.
Top 4 again.
They should be right in the mix for top. Although, I mean, top 4 was a battle last year to get into, but yeah, they should be pushing for it once again.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, now up the freeway, we're going to Newcastle. The NBL1 East Women's Champions for 2024 with a record of 16-4, finishing 4th overall. Champions, Nicole Munger, just amongst everything, going back-to-back NBL1 East MVP as well. Top scorer, top rebounder, top assist. She just loves it, and Newcastle loves her, and you'd be silly not to love Nicole Munger. She's just an absolute gem.
Does anyone not?
No, that's correct. No, I think, and if anyone did, that's a reflection on them.
I mean, she could rip your teeth out on court and you'd want to go have a beer with her afterwards.
Oh, she'd probably apologize.
Yeah.
She'd be like, I'm just really, really sorry. This was the situation. I hope you understand. And you'd be fine with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's have a look at some of these more statistical strengths and rooms to improve. Interesting. I think assist rate for me is the most interesting one in rooms to improve. But what is standing out for you?
I think probably might even be bench points. It's like to win a championship last year with your bench point. Like it's just playing those extra games and getting win after win. Like they finished the season on like a 9-game winning streak. And to not be getting massive contributions scoring wide from your bench says a lot about the players that did contribute and did get minutes. Especially like the starters obviously had to put in big minutes, but I mean, when you've got like Munger's just so good at getting to the basket, you had Isla in there as well. It doesn't surprise me that their 3-point rate wasn't that high last season. I mean, play to your strengths. So that doesn't really fade. And that's the thing with these, some of these room to improve stats for these higher teams they can sometimes just be tactically based. Might not be even what they're bad at. It's just, the way things happen. Like their blocks 2 per game. Well, how many people even take on someone like Isla in the paint in NBL1 East? But steals were high, turnovers were low, plenty of extra opportunities, and they put up 17 points per 100 possessions more than their opposition. When they were on, they were brilliant, and they proved it down the stretch just how good they can be.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's a really good point to make about when you're listing and talking about these statistical strengths and rooms to improve. It can also be a reflection on very good coaching and very good players buying into the systems of playing to your strengths, and the rest, as long as you're getting the W's, the rest doesn't matter.
That's right. Well, in terms of breaking down the game, there's a lot of stats that matter. But at the end of the season, there's only one stat that matters: who won the last game.
Yeah, that's right. That is correct. They've got a pretty, I think, the teams that they play twice, I think, are going to be really good for them. Crusaders, Illawarra, Maitland, they're all going to be relatively challenging. But I think both Newcastle and the teams that they play, with maybe exception of 1 or 2, probably have a good opportunity to get a split. And then at home, Albury, Bankstown, Canberra Hill, Sydney. Yeah, pretty good for Newcastle, I think. Pretty good. That they get Albury at home as well and they don't have to make the long trip.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think Albury will do the distance double this year, Newcastle, Maitland on the one weekend.
Yeah, very good. So let's have a look at the roster. So far they've just announced the 2, 4, 6, 8 players so far, but it's a pretty outstanding 8 as it stands. A lot of TBAs, but that's okay. But let's focus on who is here. Munga is, of course, back, and she's brought her friends from the UC Caps in Meg Jefferson and Claudia Wahape Andrews. Good to see Hannah Chicken back, because I thought she was going to college.
After this season, she's committed to Portland State.
Very good.
Portland State. Got a Portland State t-shirt. I've got to remember to wear it.
Yeah. All right. So good. So we can make sure we can help Hannah Chicken prepare as best as possible for her college career, hopefully heading over there also with another championship. Fingers crossed for them. Sophie Brennan, you were very excited to see back in the fold. And now I can't remember. Now, when we spoke about this other big signing we knew was coming based on what we saw on social media, and it wasn't officially announced yet. I'm not sure if I actually ended one of our recordings before I said this name or if I safely did. But here it is nonetheless. Susanna Walmsley. She's coming home, Lachy.
She is. Do you want to bring my screen up to the full screen if you can? My camera?
Yes, I can. Let's go like this.
There we go.
Hey! Oh my gosh. Now, for those watching at home that may not know what that is in the background, give us a briefing.
That is the player pull-up banner for Susie Walmsley, obviously, from the Sydney Uni Flames championship season. And you can't see it, and it probably is almost faded away by now, but Susie did sign it. So they had an auction, and while everyone was paying 4 figures for Asia Taylor and Leilani Mitchell's banners, I went and got Susie Walmsley's and Lauren Sparks, but I gave Lauren Sparks' to her mum, so I still have the Susie Walmsley one there.
Very good. Looks awesome. And yeah, that's a really great piece of memorabilia, I think, to have as well. I was going to ask, is it signed?
It is. So I worked for the team that season. I did all their match reports that season. So yeah, that was a good season to work for the Flames.
Yeah, definitely. I remember going to that final with a couple of my friends who are sports journalists and hadn't been to a WNBL game for a long time. And were just blown away. It was such an exciting final. That was such a unique team playing for Sydney that season. Yeah, it was a very exciting final. Well, that's the same season Ali Wilson. You mentioned Ali Wilson, didn't you? Yeah.
Ali Wilson was in that team. We had Talia Tupaia and Lauren Nicholson coming off the bench.
Yes, that's right. And was Michaela Roof in that team, but she broke her hand before the final?
No, that was the season before that.
Okay.
Yes. So Roofy and Paris Johnson, 2 seasons prior, got us to the prelim final when we beat Penny Taylor's Dandenong. Penny Taylor and Cappy Pondexter's Dandenong. And then the next season was when Roofy broke her hand. And then the season after that, we had Asia Taylor and Jen Hampson and won it all.
Yes, that's right. Jen Hampson. Good memory. Very good memory. But yeah, love that Susie Walmsley is back. Another one that is, just adding to this theme for 2025 of homecoming.
Homecoming. How good is it? It's just so many players back in the East, just making it stronger. And they come back and then players don't feel like they have to leave to go to a stronger conference. And then we don't have homecomings. We have home stayings. We just have homebodies.
Yeah. But then, when I was in my notes, I was like, Susie Walmsley and Munga together. Oh, RIP everyone else. Especially on the defensive end, they're just, if they get their chemistry right, they're just going to shut people down when they work together on the defensive end. I can see them trapping people, just causing absolute chaos to the scouts of their opposition. So yeah, they're going to complement each other really nicely. Then another big, I think the import for is Ryo Yamazaki, who has also played college in Canada and the US. Have you had much time to have a look at Ryo Yamazaki's game and what she's going to bring to the Falcons?
I haven't really, but as I understand, she's a bit of the prototypical Japanese player. I think I saw. Is that correct?
Yeah, so she is. She's very quick. She has a solid outside shot, but she also has a really nice light touch when she's finishing under the basket. The thing that I was most impressed with the footage I saw online about her game was how active she was off the ball. So even in half court offense, if she's on the weak side to say a 2-man game or 3-man game that kind of breaks down, she's able to very quickly read and react and cut into a gap, curl cut to the middle, and start to create something when her defense starts to fall asleep. So whoever's guarding her is going to have to really keep an eye on her at all times, because her activity off the ball is very, very good, and her anticipation. So yeah, she's going to be very handy for them. Yeah.
I think we say the prototypical Japanese player, but I think that's a product of how they have instilled a certain type of play in their development pathways, rather than it just being a, culture thing. Or it probably has become part of the culture over there because of the way they've instilled it in the development pathways. You watch they call themselves the Akatsuki Five, especially when they were coached by Tom Hovas. I mean, they were just like watching them against Belgium. The 2020 game, during lockdown, I must have watched that game 20 times. I just kept watching it and picking it apart because they were just such good teams to watch.
Yeah, they're really two good teams to watch. And I think internationally, they're all almost developing their own rivalry, because then at the Paris Olympics, I think Belgium beat Japan by such a large margin, which then added the extra pressure for the Opals to beat France for us to make the medals. Oh, drama. Too much stress. So much stress. This is why we love sport. Okay, rolling on now to the North Bears. As the roster stands so far, we're going to get into that. Before that, we're going to get into some season stats and facts from 2024. They finished the season with a record of 18-2, finishing second overall, losing the preliminary final to the Sutherland Sharks. Last season, they were led by Maddie O'Hare in points and assists, and Sarah Schicker leading the side in rebounds. Lachy, talk me through the statistical strengths and room to improve.
This was, I only found 4 stats in the room to improve, and 3 of them were opposition play. Opposition points in the paint was 47%, and free throw rate was 21.4%, and the fast break. So they were right down the bottom in fast break points conceded as well. But I feel like that's almost a product of teams figuring out that that's the only way they're going to get points against North, is if they go in, draw some fouls, and get out and run. Because teams were averaging, if I can just take a look, teams were shooting 24% from 3-point range against North last year. So North were killing teams on the perimeter with their perimeter defense. So I feel like that's just more of what teams had to do. And it's the net rating was 23 plus 23.2. And I'm pretty sure their defensive rating was second in the league. So it's just teams trying things to try and beat them more than an actual issue. When you're only giving up less than 0.8 points per possession, you're obviously doing things pretty well at the defensive end.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's their brand, especially under Coach Garlop, that North women's side. Even when Renee was still playing for the side, I think that really strong perimeter half-court defense was their brand almost.
Well, I mean, remember there was one season when their backcourt was Kate Seabom and Izzy Morgan. I just walk back out the stadium. I just be like, no, I'm done. I'm not doing this.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think I've all of a sudden got an injury.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's look at that roster because I feel like it's still in developing stages. They certainly announced a lot of players, but there's certainly a couple TBAs that we may need to talk about as well. So Maddie O'Hare was the first to be re-signed or announced anyway. Carla Pittman coming back on a very successful WNBL season with the Sydney Flames. Like, such a great season for her. She was promoted from development player to full roster spot, and she legit contributed consistently all season. She was so impressive. And then she earned, I think, Players, Player, and Coaches Award at their end of awards season presentation as well. So she's just going to be like booming coming into NBL1 East. She was already such a consistent threat in the league, and now, oh my gosh, strength to strength. Same with Caitlin Martin. She's coming off another DP season with the Flames. And then Ruby Perkins is now stepping up into a permanent roster spot for NBL1 East. What do you think of that?
I went down to Sutherland for their Youth League Invitational on Saturday night. And there were two games on. There was Sutherland Illawarra on court 1 and North's Comets out on court 3. I'm not going to lie. I spent more time watching the North Comets game so I could watch Ruby Perkins up close for free. And honestly, get to a North... It might even have an NBL1, but definitely get to a North Youth League game and watch Ruby Perkins and Peggy Shell work together. Chef's kiss.
So I'm looking forward to the day when, I think I've said this last season, we're looking forward to the day when we can buy Ruby Perkins' Opals jersey at some stage.
Yes.
I wonder as well, though, if she'll have to spend some time away. Oh, no, she's too, I think it's under 17s World Cup this year, or is it under 19s? Can't quite remember. But she was definitely announced in an Australian squad recently. I can't keep up. But Holly Wills is back, which we love to see. Jess Bygate is back after a season off, as well as Jolene Anderson and Emma Donnelly coming back from college for a wee bit. But TBA, Emily Simons and Meg Jeffs and Sarah Schicker. So I did notice that the North Bears announced Mikey Young is returning for the men's team, which we were holding out for.
And then we saw him on the media day video as well.
We did actually, yeah. we love those media day videos, especially before the full roster is announced, because then you've got the likes of us and a couple of our friends just screenshotting and zooming and analyzing everything to be like, who's that? Let's complete this roster. Yeah. So do you think it's a similar case of just leaving some of the hometown heroes as the last announcements?
I hope so, because I really like those players and I'd like to see them play. Yeah, I mean, Emily Simons is just one of the best players in the league. That's just flat out it. And especially for a player who's not a WNBL player. I mean, she's so versatile as well. She's not just among the best and can play multiple positions. She is among the best in multiple positions. And then Sarah Schicker led them in rebounding last year. So, I mean, they brought back Anderson and Bygate, which are going to be massive. Emma Donnelly back in the roster as well. I mean, I'm so psyched to have Jolene Anderson back, especially after what she did in the grand final 2 years ago. You can't, I mean, in a way, you kind of can walk it off like that, but in another way, you can't. You got to come back and give everyone another taste.
Yeah, definitely. And so as we are speaking about Ruby Perkins, she announced 50 minutes ago on Instagram that she has verbally committed to the University of California, Berkeley for her college career, to start her college career.
So Perkins versus Somfy in the Cal-Stanford rivalry.
Ooh, that's going to be very interesting. Very interesting. So congratulations to Ruby. I'm sure that decision would have been very difficult to make. It did come on. That's what I was going to give Emily Bessel a shout out. I briefly spoke to her today, actually. And as we know, she's over at Davidson as well. She and her classmates or teammates, or both, has started an app called Sports Spark. So you can find them on Instagram at sportspark.app. They're aiming to create an app that is designed to help college athletes re-spark their game with mental health services and sports psychology, perhaps. So it's just in its preliminary phases. I think they're looking to develop the app and launch it this year. So go and check it out on Instagram and give them a follow so far. But what an incredible initiative from some young athletes.
100%. I don't think I can show it.
I'm like, where's that tat? I can only see a little bit of it.
Yeah, I like it. It's the ring light.
Yeah.
Yes. Davidson tattoo. Yes, there we go.
Very good. There you go.
Go Davidson.
Anyway, we better be moving on because we don't want to show the North too much favoritism or someone will shut us down.
Why not? They don't think I show them enough favoritism anymore.
But here we are, Penrith Panthers. Last season, their 2024 season, their record was 7-13, finishing 11th overall, which meant they obviously didn't qualify for finals, but we got to see Talia Tupai with some huge games in the season last year for Penrith. So obviously she was their top scorer and dished out the most assist with Mia Hyder, top rebounder. 14.1 rebounds per game is outstanding.
That is,
to say the least.
That is mammoth numbers. That's up near Unique Thompson numbers.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's huge numbers. Talk me through some of their strengths and limitations, Lachy.
Well, we already mentioned that Talia Tupai is off to Inner West. And those first three statistical strengths, I feel like, are based a lot on Talia Tupai, because she shot 146 out of 160, 91.2% from the line. So there's a lot of free throw rate and a lot of free throw percentage and a lot of fouls drawn in there. So yes, they have three strengths based around, drawing fouls and converting them, but a lot of it comes from Talia, who is no longer there. Get a fair bit from, actually, Mia Hyder and Chloe Williams had 109 and 76 free throws attempted, respectively. The next best on the team was 21. So it's 285 between those three and maybe 90 between the rest of the team. So definitely something to look at there. I guess just, turnover rate. Turnover rate is high, but they don't give up a lot of fast break points, which I found interesting. And it's just the net rating, when you finish 7-13, you're going to be scoring fewer points than you're giving up. But 13.9 is tough. That's a lot to bring back. But I think, as we'll see in the next slide, I think they've made some improvements to the roster that could really, really help them.
Absolutely. Let's get stuck into it. I have to say that they've done a great job recruiting in the off-season. The roster is, they've got a lot of numbers on the roster, which is already good, and they've got a lot of good versatile talent in terms of skill set and experience as well to round out this roster. I think they're going to be more successful. I think they've got potential. I think they're going to get more than 7 wins this season with this roster. The one that we were really excited about before Eastcott Game made a return was Sarika Shillingsworth. We love seeing her back on court.
We certainly do. Yes,
Yes.
multi-sport athlete extraordinaire.
Yes, so I'm really glad that she's back playing. Jolene Imprezo has made the move from Inner West to Penrith, and I wrote in my notes, justice for Jolene. Give her some more time. She's got so much potential. She's represented the Philippines at a fever level. Like, give her some more time. Zoe Jackson is a huge signing as well for Penrith, coming out of COE.
Quite literally.
Yeah.
And he got 194 centimeters.
Yes, that's right. And so obviously there's a couple of more names. Mia Hyder's returning, which is also a really, really big get, and a couple of other new names on the roster. Have you had a chance to look into some of these new signings for Penrith just yet, Lockie?
So Jordan Vasquez is one of their new signings. She's an import signing, so second import along Hyder. 6 foot forward, played her college ball at Cal State, San Marcos, and Fort Lewis College. So started at Fort Lewis and then moved to Cal State San Marcos, which is D2 school, obviously, in San Marcos. Averaged 16.7 points per game in her senior year of college and 11.8 rebounds. So, yes, D2 height is not as big of a thing as it would be in D1, but still, you go out there and get 16.7 points and 11.8 rebounds per game. We know what you can do. We know you're going to be on the glass. Shot 1 3-pointer for her entire college career at San Marcos, so definitely look for her to be more around the basket, where she shot 55% from the field, all from 2-point range for the season, for her senior season, where she just came on in leaps and bounds that final year. Just emerged as a real leader for her college team. And I mean, Penrith, they've got some players who have been around a while, but you can never have too much leadership on the roster, especially from your imports. You really want imports who are going to, really stamp their mark on the team.
Yeah, so the two imports, I mean, we mentioned Mia Hyder averaging 14.1 rebounds per game. Sounds like the two imports are just going to have potential to dominate the boards in a similar way. We were talking about the Canberra Nationals earlier with Kettles, McAllister, and Bourne. It looks like Penrith are going to be able to match them quite nicely with their rebounding caliber. And if I looked at some of Jordan's footage online from what I could find, and she looks like a traditional back to the basket type post player. She's definitely has the handles and the footwork to still go coast to coast when she needs to, but a very nice textbook post player from the high and low post, which we love to see. We don't want to see that dying from the game. What about Kelly Chase? Did you get to look much into her?
I couldn't find much on her from very recently. She's from France and has played in their second division, but it doesn't look like it's been for a while. And I'm kind of wondering if they've got Hyder, Vasquez, and then a French player as well. Maybe she's been in Australia long enough to not count as an import anymore. So,
the only footage I could find was, again, another club we need to shout out for their announcements and providing extra footage of their new signing is Penrith Panthers. So the only footage I think I could really find was the footage that the Panthers had provided on their Instagram page. And she's tough. She's really, really tough. Little pocket rocket. So she's also very quick, but she's ready to use her body to compensate for her size, both on offense and on defense. There's footage of her taking charges against people that are double her size. She's taking on anyone off the dribble. You get a bump when you're playing one-on-one, and she's able to absorb it and still find a way to the basket. She's going to be really exciting to watch as well.
Yeah, I also, what I like about this roster is they named 14, and there's a few players that might pull double shift with Youth League, but they're not going to be burning out half their roster in Youth League, which is good to see as well. There's a couple, I think, Kaylee Martin and Keely Davies, who are in the TBA list, I think were named in Penrith's Youth League squad, if not roster. So,
good stuff. Invest in local talent.
And also, I just One, I just want to shout out because she's played for Bathurst, is Malika Jenkins, because we got to shout out the Western New South Wales players.
Oh, yeah. Well, while we're at it, we got to shout out Tegan Edwards, who used to be formerly known as Tegan Burke.
Who also played for... I watched her win a Waratah Div 2 championship for Bathurst up at Maitland in 2014.
Wow. So, yes, actually, I do remember that as well. Was Paul Masters the coach? Was it that year?
That was my first season watching Waratah League. So
yeah, so you were fair enough.
And it was Waratah too.
So Tegan is originally from Bathurst, and then her and her family moved to the Central Coast back in the day. She's the same age group as Molly Rice from Albury Wodonga Bandits, and the two of them used to play together and were just outstanding in their age group. So Tegan has a really varied skill set, and I'm glad that she's still involved in the game too. So shout out to Western New South Wales. But yes, let's move on to our last team. It is now the Sydney Comets women. Last season, they had a record of 10-10, finishing 7th, and they lost the elimination final to the Central Coast Crusaders. Last season, we saw the likes of Shyla Hill, Janine Kemp, and Davida Dale leading the way in their significant statistics. All three players, unfortunately, haven't been announced for the Comets for 2025. But tell me a little bit more about their stats from last season, Lachy.
Well, I mean, I should almost just put most steals instead of one of the other stats, because Davida Dale was at 5.5 assists. I think she had more steals than assists per game, and those assist numbers are pretty good. But obviously, Davida Dale is now at Bankstown, so that statistical strength of steals and fast break points, well, that's going to have to be made up by committee, because you don't just go out and find another Davida Dale at the defensive end. Steals, fast break points, points off turnovers. No wonder they led the league in that. But they kept the turnover rate low, which is good. But just defensive rebounding rate, I hate things that allow the opposition more opportunities than you. You know, how many times has a team shot? We've watched it in NBL1 East and talked about it. Has a team shot a worse field goal percentage by a decent clip, but the turnover numbers and the offensive rebounding numbers have just swayed so far in their favor that they put the ball in the basket more times. So yeah, defensive rebounding rate, something they need to pick up, and the free throw percentage. If it ever starts with a 6, I'm not impressed.
Oh, and for me, I'm sorry, but if it starts with a 7, it's got to be at least a 75, then I'm okay with it. But come on, this is the semi-pros. You've got to be 75 and above. But if it starts with a 6, no, ma'am. I also wonder as well, that field goal percentage, just reflecting on the times when we watch some of the Comets games. Now, to be fair as well, for the Comets team last season, I think they had quite their roster and their team chemistry was probably hard to adapt to a lot, because I think they had a lot of late admissions to the squad as the season went on. So I don't think they actually started the season with people like Heel, Camp, and Dale straight away. I think they Davida Dale was the first to arrive. But I think their field goal percentage was sometimes reflective of perhaps poor decision-making in certain situations, or people trying to fight for more shots than the other person. Or I think there was a lot of those kind of unknowns and question marks that you can't really stat properly, but you could see when you play, the disharmony, I think, was sometimes reflected in field goal percentage. Is that how you remember it, or am I remembering it differently?
I think sometimes you just get those plays happen where things just sort of break and someone just has to take a shot. And I'm not talking about it gets to 23 in the shot clock. It's just sometimes you just realize that nothing is developing and someone has to shoot the ball at some point, and that's when you don't get good shots. Whether it's a function of, people acting as though they're the first option in the offense when they're not, or, trying to make their mark on the team. Sometimes, a bit of a lack of chemistry, especially earlier in the season, it just leads to maybe not poor decision making, as more, I think forced decisions might be a better term for some of them. I don't think anyone out there is completely innocent of not making a bad decision once or twice in their career, but sometimes I think there were forced decisions.
Forced decisions is a much better way to describe it. Yes, I agree. So let's have a look at the new roster for 2025 for the Sydney Comets women's side. Again, seeing a lot of local talent returning with the likes of Kay Roos, Oliver and Anderson. And also Piper Anderson coming off a successful season as a development player for the Sydney Flames in the WNBL. Biggest signings that we've talked about in previous episodes being Abby Curtin and Michaela Perini. But I'm going to be honest with you, Lachy. I don't recognize a lot of the other names. I'm going to have to lean on you to tell me some intel.
Okay, well, some of these are not announced in like your fancy Instagram graphics. Some of them are on the club website as a team. So Emily Nguyen, Gabby Neal, Nina Baker, Sam Bidwell, all coming up from Youth League. Elle Fletcher was on Hill's roster last year. Don't think I saw a lot of her. Talon Alexander is don't know if she wasn't. She mustn't have. She was around the program. I don't think she was ever actually on a game night roster. So they're all coming up through Youth League. And Gabby Neal, I watched her in that game against Ruby Perkins. She's from Queensland, so she's formerly out of Ipswich, and she looked good running the offense against North, the Comets. I mean, North pulled Ruby Perkins out of the game pretty early, but it finished, I think, 59-52. And Comets Youth League, I mean, Ruby Perkins is going to do that to just about what she did to Comets the other night in Youth League. She's going to do to just about every Youth League team, and just tear them apart. But I rated Gabby running a bit of the offense for Comets. It seems like she's got a bit of toughness about her as well. And I think having been, she was in Ipswich's NBL1 program as well. So she's been around the environment for a while. But I mean, I'm psyched for these young players that have been around a while, your Kay Rooses, your Olivers, your Andersons, to just keep elevating and just get more consistent. I think that's what they could all do with, is just more consistent. And that'll come with time. With time, you get better. You get better technically, you get better physically, you make better decisions, and you just improve. And I mean, especially Piper Anderson, after a year with the Sydney Flames, learning from those players on that roster, those coaches, I can't wait to see what she does this year.
Yeah, that's great. So, well, look, it sounds like a very young and exciting team. The only other background I wanted to give was Michaela Perini, who, if some people in the East haven't heard the name before, but basically she's got a Wikipedia page, so you know she's legit.
Love it.
But she has played most of her career, whether it's semi-pro in NBL1 or equivalent, or WNBL in WA, where she's originally from. I think once upon a time she was in the mix of some Australian junior teams or a COE equivalent. But she most recently in the WNBL had a season with Adelaide Lightning, has been still a standout performer over in NBL1 East. And actually this year, sorry, not this year, last year, the WNBL preseason Comp Hoops Fest that was held in Perth as well. Perini suited up for the Townsville Fire and that squad that they took over there, and was just like, had the time. Looked like she was having so much fun. She was just balling out, having a great time. Full skill set on show. So this is a huge signing for Sydney Comets. And I think, Lachy, we're going to have to try and get more to this story. Hopefully, perhaps get her on as a guest in our season for 2025 for Eastcott game, perhaps, and find out a little bit more about what attracted her to coming to sign over in the East.
It's funny. I went up to Comets on Saturday. Great new roof they've got at Comets, by the way. Doesn't leak, which is basically the only thing that was wrong with the roof before. And we were talking about Perini, and I've been outdone on my old school knowledge, because I was saying that I remember Perini when she was with the West Coast Waves, and Kiara Levi drops, well, I remember playing against her when she was playing for WA Metro. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, well, that's not very often that someone one-ups you, Lachy.
I know, right?
You are pretty much the go-to for any deep cut information, so that's a rare occasion.
I had to admit defeat on that occasion.
And now, just before we wrap up on tonight's episode, let's just quickly recap the NBL1 Blitz that is happening this weekend. And then we've also got a little bit of extra news about Eastcott game that I'd like to share before we finish up. So what I'm going to do is try and bring up, I'm going to share my screen.
Just let me share my screen.
Let me share my screen.
They say in corporate parlance, oh, Hills re-signed Paith Mamoisia in the men's.
Oh, well, that's good.
So there you go. Another signing for Hills.
Now, here we go. Whoops. I need to remove this. And here we go. Here is the NBL1 East Blitz tournament for 2025's tipping off at Penrith Valley Regional Sports Centre on Saturday, the 15th of March, starting at 11 a.m. Now, this is the women's draw as it stands. So you can see Penrith, obviously, pretty appropriately tipping off the tournament, playing against Hornsby, which will be interesting given that they still haven't announced any athletes from either men's or women's side. Then we can see Hills, North, Inner West as well. Interestingly, they have entered a women's team, again, only announcing one player. Sydney, Central Coast Crusaders, Illawarra, Canberra, Bankstown, Manly, Warringah, Newcastle, Maitland, and Sutherland. So that is a good spread of teams. That is the majority of the teams.
Is that everyone except Albury and COE?
Yeah, it looks like
Which
it,
is pretty much what I would,
yes.
I am legitimately never going to blame Albury for not coming up to the Blitz if it's in Penrith.
Yeah, so you're right. It's every team other than COE and Albury, which is awesome. That's a really, really great turnout. So I would have loved if it was televised somehow. I was hoping to come down for the weekend and naturally have left it way too late. But it looks like everyone only has 2 games per weekend, which is good. I mean, we don't want any preseason injuries, but plenty of opportunity to go and watch some of the other games and perhaps start your scouting reports. And so that's for the women. And let's have a look at the men. First game on Saturday will be at 3 p.m. Canberra versus Bankstown. Then we've got Manly, Newcastle, Central Coast and Illawarra, Inner West and Sydney, Maitland and Sutherland, Penrith and Hornsby and Hills and North. So again, Hornsby obviously taking a squad despite not having announced any names yet.
Well, we have seen some players. They just won't announce them yet.
Yes, that's right. We have, again, our super sleuthing online, trying to find things from stories and media day promo shoots and things like that, trying to piece the clues together of who's on these rosters. Between us and some of our peers, I think we're going okay so far, but we would prefer the official announcements.
Let's just say my local spreadsheet on my computer has a lot more names in it than the NBL1 East roster tracker on eastcottgame.com.
Yeah. So it looks like, again, Albury and COE are the only teams not coming for the men's fixture, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, 7 games, 14 teams.
Yeah. Thought I'd better give it a like while we're here. If you're able and you've got nothing on the weekend, head to the Penrith Valley Regional Sports Centre for the NBL1 Blitz this weekend, starting at 11 a.m. with Penrith and Hornsby. So there you go.
I'll be up bright and early.
Yeah, I would be really keen to go and see. I love a preseason tournament like a Blitz because it just starts the hype, it starts the chatter, builds the atmosphere and the excitement heading into a new full season. So for those that are going, please enjoy and report back. Send us a DM on Instagram at eScottGame. If you happen to go to the Blitz and you've got some thoughts that you want to share, send us a DM. We'd love to hear about your experience. Now, the last bit of news that I've got, Lachy, is we've got a new logo.
We do.
We've got a new logo. I'm going to try and bring it up now. You can see it up in the corner. I'm not too sure. What I might try and do is let's see if I can bring it up. Oh, no, that's just you. Hey, Lachy. Hanging out with the new logo. Yes, but you can see it there in the corner, our new eScott Game logo, very kindly submitted to us by actually someone from NBL1 North. So I'm just going to bring up their details to make sure, again, that I'm representing them properly. So new logo, it's going to be featured from now on our social media platforms, etc. It was designed by an online personality per se named Deej Wiz. So DEEJ, new word, WIZZ. So they are the NBL1 game day DJ at the Northside Wizards up here in NBL1 North.
They do a really good game day as well to the Wizards.
They do. They do a very good game day, top to bottom. I mean, they always have talented teams, so the games are always going to be entertaining. The DJ is always great. And look,
they got proper stadium lights as well, in the arena lights. Like when they darken the stadium, they can properly put on a show, on a
light show, and they have great chicken nuggets and chippies at the canteen.
They do.
They do. Yeah.
I've been there once, so
yeah. So yeah, we got a brand new logo. Thanks for Deej Wiz for designing it. Honestly, he also designed the Ball Don't Lie podcast new logo as well. But yeah, he just very kindly sent us a message on Instagram and say, hey, here's some suggested logos. We both really liked this one. We had two options. They gave us permission to use it for nothing other than a shout out. So we're very, very appreciative. They're just Deej Wiz is very supportive of podcasts like this and other homegrown alternative media outlets that are going to promote basketball at the local level. So yeah, we really appreciate it. Thank you. We love it. So yeah, we got a new logo.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Yeah, so for those that are going to be listening to this later, check it out, our new logo online. Let us know what you think. Before we wrap up, Lachy, have you got anything else to share that you need to get off your chest before we say goodbye?
Bankstown are selling replica jerseys.
They are selling replica jerseys. Yes, we put it on our Instagram story today, so make sure you head to either their website or their social pages to find the appropriate link.
Yeah, and you can get really a name and number on them. So make sure you figure out maybe DM your favorite player. If you're on good terms with them, don't just go randomly DMing players. But if you know someone, you know a player, you want to know what number they're wearing, so you can get your jersey all right and proper.
Yeah, I think that's good. Like, if you're going to sell replica jerseys, go all the way by letting people get the name, whatever name and number that they want.
You know what's funny? I have a Manly jersey with Alex Delaney's name on the back and her jersey number. But Manly didn't put names on the actual jerseys the players wore. You could get a personalized jersey, but the player didn't get one.
Yeah.
So I want two things from Manly this season. One, personalized Indigenous jerseys for the players. And two, please sell them again, because I've got 3 or 4 more players I want to get jerseys of.
Or at least like do a pre-order.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Crusaders, you know, when we had Indigenous round or Pink round coming up, we used to have a pre-order, or we used to be able to buy them. And I've still got them there, some of my favorite jerseys, and then it stopped. But you know, Indigenous rounds coming up, mental health round, heritage round, you know those rounds are coming. Let us make a pre-order, because I'm sure if you can get however many minimal order using a pre-order, you'll be sweet. You don't have to worry about losing money.
And Illawarra are selling jerseys as well. Again,
great.
They sold them last year too. So plenty of team. And last year, Sutherland had jerseys available at every game. So more and more teams are selling jerseys, which is great to see.
Yeah, excellent. Very good. Very good. Again, any news, gossip, information you think is going to be worthwhile sharing on the podcast, please send us a message at eScottGame on Instagram. You can also still find us now on Facebook and also on YouTube, where a lot of these episodes are streamed live. I shouldn't say a lot. All of them are streamed live on YouTube. They'll soon be streamed live on Facebook as well, and we're streaming live on Instagram. But if you can't catch us live, you can still listen to our episodes on all of your regular streaming platforms, or you can catch up on the recordings on YouTube as well. But otherwise, Lachy, I think it's about time we bid goodbye. Next week's episode, we're going to be covering the final 8 men's rosters for the 2025 season. Well, as much as we can, given that it's still 2 weeks that Hornsby haven't announced officially any players. Do you think we're going to get lucky that they're going to hear this and go, oh, hey, we'll announce a couple ahead of next week's episode? Or is that a little bit optimistic and maybe arrogant of me to think that?
At the very worst, we might get an idea at the Blitz.
Correct. That is correct. We will get an idea at the Blitz. So that's probably going to have to be our way of figuring out the roster.
It's the same as if you put a media day video up. If you don't announce the players and the players get, like Comets, who have they not announced that was in their media day video?
I mean, I know the boys at 2 Feet in the Paint kind of let that slip on their Instagram story the other day, but it was someone that we had a big question mark over in our first episode called Believe the Hype. Let's just wait till we talk about that next episode, hey?
I think so.
Yeah, let's do that. But yeah, next episode, we're going to go through the final 8 men's rosters for 2025 NBL1 East season. Remember to find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. But what do we like to say to close out all of these episodes, Lachy?
Don't sleep on the East.
Correct. Oh, and a tiny, tiny bit of music to play us off. See you all later.